Hello, I'm Annie Zeidman-Karpinski. I'm the Ken and Kenda Singer Science Librarian. I work in the Price Science Commons, and I think of myself as kind of an evangelical librarian. I made so many mistakes when I was in graduate school, and then I figured out how not to make those mistakes, and I really want to tell everyone how not to make the same mistakes I did.
I'm Mark Blaine. I'm a professor of practice in the journalism school here, and big focus in my work in the J School is in science communication. Associate Director of the Center for Science Communication Research, which is a new center that we have. My work with the Knight campus really extends that science communication focus to faculty and graduate students here affiliated with the campus and more broadly, to really kind of teach storytelling tools and methods to scientists so that they can kind of get ahead of the science communication problem, as I would state it, that maybe it's better for us to train scientists to be telling those stories so that when they're interacting with journalists and other members of the public, that those interactions go better.
I'm Annie Zemper. I'm assistant professor of biology in the Institute of Molecular Biology. I run a research lab that studies intestinal stem cells, gut stem cells, and their relationship to afflictions like inflammatory bowel disorder as well as colorectal cancer. And so my lab is on the main UO campus, and as far as my role in the Knight campus goes, I'm a really passionate science communicator. So I have a background in vocal performance as well as theater performance, and about a year ago, I had approached Mark and Jim Hutchison, and I said, what's the science? Is there a science communication piece that's being developed within the Knight campus, and it's something I'd love to be involved with because I feel very strongly about our students and our mentors, whether they're postdocs or PIs or academic leadership, be able to communicate our science to the public, but also to each other. And so I've been involved in that initiative that's been evolving over the past year or so, and I'm also a faculty fellow at the Knight campus. So I have wear a couple different hats there, giving input on new hires and various things. So.
My name's Nathan Jacobs, and I work for the Knight campus, and what I've been doing is designing and launching new academic programs. So I was involved in designing and developing the curriculum for the upcoming undergraduate bioengineering program, as well as the joint UO-OSU PhD program in bioengineering. And alongside with that, I've been working to launch initiatives to basically help students succeed, not only in their academic portion of their graduate tenure, but also in all aspects related to the career. So that's really how I came to be part of the Impact team, where we're trying to help students, launch their career at a really high level, as opposed to starting a brand new graduate program and just stumbling through and finding their way on their own. We're really trying to kickstart them, at a really high level, and then just only go upwards from there. Science communication is a key part of what we're working on, but I think it expands beyond that. So we're also working on helping the vision of innovation and entrepreneurship just kind of like get into the heads and permeate through the mindset of our students, and also helping them with their own professional development. Mm-hmm. So one thing that's easy to forget about a new graduate student is they really don't know what they're doing. Nobody really trains you how to be a graduate student and how to succeed. And I think that's a key role that we have, is really embracing a full spectrum of science communication, professional development. So doing an individual development plan and thinking about where they want to be in their career when they graduate, and identifying key steps to take to get there, and guiding them through that process as mentors, and also thinking of innovation entrepreneurship. So all of our students are engaged in really exciting science, but there is a tendency in academia to do science for the purpose of doing science. And at the Knight campus, we're really trying to do, impactful science that, really changes society and benefits others. And, there's a whole mindset behind doing that, and how to ask questions from the beginning of how your science will have that impact. And that ties in both just to science in general, but also to entrepreneurship, product development. And so working on embracing that aspect of scientific training as well, kind of this holistic picture of, those key facets. So I think Impact Week really hones into this concept of, launching and accelerating your career from a really high level. And it's, I think at the core part of the concept is to kind of spin the traditional orientation week on its head. And, like Annie was talking about some of the traditional things you do, which are pretty low level, not engaging things, lab safety type things, walking through, here's where this is, here's where that is. And instead we said, what are you going to really need to do or really need to know to be successful and to really, move the needle as a graduate student? And how do we get that, how do we help you absorb that from the get-go so that you can just start immediately making a difference in your career, in your studies, in your science? And so we spent a week trying to deliver those things. And a large part of that was Mark's communications training. So something I think unique that we did was before Impact Week ever started, we had them introduce themselves in video format, recorded, and also their science background and what they hope to work on. And then we used that as a baseline that then as we work through all the trainings, we would record new stages that we could go back and say, this is where you started and this is where you've come as you've learned different things like assertion evidence, or Mark, why don't you chime in with some of the things?
Well, a bunch of different
And but therefore.
narrative techniques, but also just paying attention to what your audience needs. I think that's a big piece of it. More than any sort of little piece of content, it's really, there's a fundamental question there, or a moment there of just teaching people to ask questions about who they're talking to know more about them so that they can kind of tailor what it is they're saying, to whoever that is. I think that one piece I wanted to add too to this is that we've been lamenting, COVID times and being remote and things like that. And we, pulled off Impact Week, and that was incredible. And then we had the bioengineering conference last week, which, had that been a live event somewhere, I don't know. I mean, I probably wouldn't have been able to go. None of us, we probably wouldn't have gone necessarily. But we were able to do Impact Week and then drop into this spatial chat thing and go and see the students that we'd had in Impact Week just 6 weeks before, doing a lot of the stuff that we had just talked about. And Annie came up with these amazing kind of new kind of thinking about posters that just dovetailed really beautifully with this virtual format, and really thinking about if you're a poster presenter, you're not physically standing there, but you're a little bubble of video, and the screen, the type is really small. How do you make that work? And you were just quick with okay, well here this UX expert has worked this out, and nobody's adopting it in the live format, but here we are in digital, and we can do that. And then we have these students who are already engaged with those ideas, so they did it, and it's oh wow. I mean, we were talking today about this, that went farther than we expected. That was cool.
The impact concepts were impactful, would you say? Yeah, no, I mean, it's true though. It's typically in our third or fourth year of our PhD training, or definitely toward the end of any sort of master's time frame, if you're doing a master's degree, that you start to think about how you'll package your science for a poster or for a talk at some conference. And you give presentations, meaningful presentations before that, but for some reason the tradition has always been to really only, buckle down and prepare your narrative when it's sort of a bigger venue, or if it's a big, thesis committee meeting or your defense or something like that. And so what I love about one of the first things you started with Impact Week was thinking about their science narrative right now. Even if you have just started communicating with who it is that you might want to rotate with, or you may want to work in their lab and do X or Y, think about what you want to say to them, what they want to hear from you. Start using those tools. And then once you have some science to present, same thing. What do you want to say to them, but what do they want to hear from you? And always be thinking about that. And we aren't, historically haven't trained scientists that way. And so that's one of the big things that I hope this initiative through the Night Campus can contribute, not only to the Night Campus, but to UO in general within our sciences, to have a model for starting that communication about science day one, right when they start.
We also had them practice how to communicate their science with folks in an informal setting as well, which I thought was really important, important too. And probably we could use a little bit more of that in the poster session training too. We talked about how the virtual poster session was just as awkward as the real live poster session was.
That means it worked.
In a good way, yeah. But
Yeah.
so, but leveraging the awkward. So.
Right. Yeah.
No, but there's truth to what you said, leveraging, that informal setting as well, because that's how you network. That's how you, possibly land your postdoc gig, right? Is you're at a conference and, you don't meet someone at your poster, you meet them, refilling your drink or something, and they ask you, briefly, just, who do you work with and what do you do, and being able to concisely, deliver a message that means something in that sort of setting is important as well. And so I think, thinking about that global concept of all the different audiences, all the different people and what they need to hear based on who they are in the setting that you're in is, something that you might not think about, like Annie said, until you're a third year or, 3.5 years in, and that's too late. You've missed so many opportunities at that point.
To practice the skill,
yeah.
Right? You don't want to be doing it first time, you want to be tweaking your message earlier on.
I was thinking about the importance of serendipity and luck and happenstance, whatever you want to call it, but those wonderful accidents that happen that change the trajectory of of so many of us in so many ways, and making use of that. But I was thinking about it in terms of so the Library of Congress system is set up so that every subject in the library is next to other things on that subject, and the reason why we have open stacks in research libraries like ours is so that people can walk through the aisles and kind of look for something that they know that they want, but then sort of accidentally find other things that are also important. And so what I love about this is that we're helping people make the best of those situations, those happy accidents, like you were saying, refilling your drink, and being able to talk to somebody and make that connection that might change the path that you're on.
I love that idea, that kind of the Library of Congress open stacks kind of idea, and creating serendipity, because it's so much of what we talk about. It's like, well, let's start with communicating to your colleagues. Then let's start with communicating to colleagues in sort of adjacent fields who you might collaborate with, and then keep drawing the ring out wider and wider. And what does that look like? And where can you find those connections, and where can you kind of optimize that stuff? That you can, the person who you might want to be collaborating with is, maybe you're a biologist and they're an engineer, but they're, being able to tell the story that they're going to hook into and be like, oh wait, I can see an application for that, and kind of move between those two ideas. I think it expands people's possibilities.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah.
I also want to, maybe we'll talk about it other times, but you were also talking about the importance of scientific communication for bringing people in who maybe didn't think that they would understand it. And I think that can be, other scientists and also people who don't consider themselves particularly science-y as well. I wanted to make sure you had a chance to say that.
Well, yeah, thanks. I think that's a thing that we talk a bit about at the center as well, the Center for Science Communication Research. But the idea of there's communicating to your colleagues, and there's a lot of we think a lot about STEM careers and bringing people into STEM careers, and that's all wonderful and good, and we should be doing that, absolutely. But is there kind of a bigger circle to draw around that, where more people have access in some ways to scientific knowledge and connection to it, and are versed at least well enough that there is interaction? There's more room for talking to scientists, or for scientists talking to the public, or to whoever, so that and what does that then, how does that then change the equation? That essentially letting more people in the door to have access to science, when it's been fairly narrow for a long time. And communication isn't the solution to that, but I think it's one element that can be really, really valuable.
I feel like the Night Campus already has benefited University of Oregon in many ways, but one of the ways that we've touched on a lot today is getting people to think about how it is that they communicate their science, and providing a model for onboarding graduate students, onboarding new faculty, and their communication with their grad students to start at a high level with their plan, but also with the way that they want to talk to each other and think about their science beyond just, in their little lab setting. And I think that challenging grad students to start thinking about that on day one is really important. And I, like I said earlier, I think that the Knight campus has really done a nice job of giving an example of how we can start to do that in other nucleated areas of science at the University of Oregon in general.
I mean, I think it comes back to the idea of impact again, though, as well. And there's this, let's expand that notion. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm from the journalism school. That's a strange, combination in some ways, but maybe not. It seems to be working, because because we do science communication, and that's a thing that, that we have some expertise in. So let's try that up, but then let's think about it a little bit differently and bring different partners in through that avenue, So as we, as a school, start developing a minor and a graduate specialization and things like that, then there's, that network kind of spreads out more broadly within the university community. And I think a lot of people, see themselves in the sciences, but maybe not at the bench, for example, because I've seen a number of freshmen and sophomores who've come in and thought, well, I'm a science major, but then something changed and they ended up in the journalism school and they have the science interest, but they, being able to satisfy that and have this place be something that models, different connections and really, really encourages different connections. Encourages also the connection to industry. I think we've, that's another piece of the puzzle, that we don't often talk about. We kind of seek it out, but I'm doing communication training for industry partners as well, that sort of blends these ideas. And again, that seems to have this much bigger footprint that's really interesting, and it's thinking differently about that.
Yeah, I think the chances for cross-pollination, since we're all using science metaphors, I think has really been wonderful, like from the group here, and then what the students can do and sort of what the faculty have been able to do with the affiliated faculty and the faculty who are here, and the way we're sort of using the resources, like certainly of the library, to help those resources that we sort of thought as very narrow disciplinary resources, like seeing them being used by all different kinds of, in all different kinds of ways and for all different kinds of applications, and then also sort of moving things from, just theoretical to sort of applied, giving people an outlet for those instincts to have some applied ways to apply some of the information or the research that they're doing. I think all of those are really exciting. I think it's just been a real nice jolt of energy to kind of spur everyone to think about, like, what is possible? What can we do next?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you think about it in terms of our impact on the rest of campus, it goes to all of the things that you've all said. But also if you think about, I think one of the reasons that this team is successful is because we are from all across campus. Mm-hmm. So, I'm the only one in this group that primarily works in the Knight campus. Annie is, a leading researcher at the university, but not, your faculty home's not in the Knight campus. Mark's in journalism, and he always says, I'll defer to the scientists, but, really he, everything that he talks about is so on point and relevant to how to communicate science that it kind of makes me laugh when he says that. Annie's our librarian, who is a world-class resource to all over the university, really. So really the group is made up of all across campus, and I think that's one of the reasons that we are effective, and I hope that that's one of the reasons that we'll be able to, reach out and benefit the rest of campus too.
The last thing I'll say is that in the last year, we had workshops that trained core faculty from the main campus in not only in communicating their science, but how they might go about mentoring that type of communication and modeling it for their own students. So we have night campus affiliates, night campus faculty fellows, and associates that have taken this training and now have the tools to directly implement that in their own lab. And so one of the things I would hope is that as this gets bigger and the net grows wider, now we have PIs or mentors that are teaching their postdocs and their graduate students best practice from the first day. And then that trickles down to the undergrads. And now we have, over time now, you've completely shifted the way that science is communicated at the university in general. From early seeds of training now to everybody carrying that back to their lab and it becoming a thing, well, you just learn how to communicate. This is what we do here. And then that just, makes it so much more impactful, I think, for everybody, not just here at the night campus, but of course in the university abroad.